because transformation doesn't happen through knowledge alone. It happens when you integrate what you know into how you think, how you lead, and how you live.
What is this principle, and how do you go about, or how would you go about defining conscious awareness?
It's a discipline of becoming present, being intentional, and aligned by disrupting autopilot thinking. Welcome, friends, to these first foundation episodes of the modern culture. We like to think of the modern culture as a living framework built not just on ideas, but on embodiment. These 10 principles in this first season aren't abstract ideals. They are intentional practices designed to be lived, breathed, and expressed through how we show up, how we lead, and how we impact the world around us. Over the next series, we're going to be diving deep into each one of these 10 principles, not just to understand them, but to explore how to practice them in real life. Because transformation doesn't happen through knowledge alone. It happens when you integrate what you know into how you think, how you lead, and how you live. So we begin with the first and perhaps most foundational principle, conscious awareness.
So, Leah, then as we start in that foundation, what then is this? What is this principle? And how do you go about, or how would you go about defining conscious awareness?
So conscious awareness it's a discipline. It's a discipline of becoming present, being intentional, and aligned by disrupting autopilot thinking. It's how leaders shift from reacting to responding with clarity and purpose and integrity. And by recognizing these internal patterns and directing attention, right, they get to reclaim the power that they've always had to choose to embody the truth and learn how to think in a way that helps them shape the way that they lead.
So what isn't it then? I mean, you talked about what it is, but what is not?
So if conscious awareness is like a radical discipline, right, in disrupting your default settings, what it's not is self-help jargon that you slap on a quote. That's what it's not. If it is the moment that you realize that your thoughts aren't facts, okay, that's what it is. What it isn't is spiritual sugarcoating for avoiding real life. That toxic positivity, that's what it's not. What it is a courageous practice of not believing everything that you think and being willing to be wrong. What it's not is a motivational soundbite that you repost and forget. That's what it's not.
Oh my God, I love that. I love that, because in all of that, and we've heard so many times, it gets confused. I think conscious awareness gets very confused with other beliefs, other terms, other things. You and I talk all the time about creating our own dictionary. What do you see conscious awareness being confused with?
So I think it gets confused with mindfulness, right? I think it gets confused with mindfulness. It's not mindfulness. It's not incense in a calm playlist, right? It's throwing the spotlight on your habits, your blind spots, and your go-to reactions, right? Instead of refusing and pretending that you don't see them or just being confused by them. It's not hyper-productivity in disguise, okay? And it's not being emotionally polished. It's messy. It's raw, right? It's the moment you pause mid-pattern, as we do, and say, damn, that's on me. That's me. And I can choose differently. and this is on me. There's a responsibility in here for me. I just have to be aware enough to see it.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Well, you are our science girl. You are our researcher. We joke about this all the time. You're the framework, you're the researcher, you dive into all the science behind type of things. What is the science behind this?
The science behind this, and spoiler alert, it is the missing ingredient behind most failed change efforts. Just FYI.
Mm-hmm.
But we have a neurological truth that we want to bring forward, and that is what we call the default mode network, right? This is your brain's background noise. It is responsible for daydreaming, for rehashing old narratives, replaying worst case scenarios, the rumination of worry. It is the borrowing trouble from your future and living in your past, right? When you're not consciously aware, the DMN, right? The default mode network is in full control, right? You think you're leading, but really you're reliving the past and calling it your strategy. Okay. So that's the neurological truth of it. The psychological truth about it is we have to understand that attention is your superpower, right? And your attention has a spotlight, and most people unnecessarily aim it at fear, at doubt, at shame, at blame, at distraction. And so conscious awareness is really the act of grabbing that spotlight back and redirecting it towards a future instead of, the triggers and the trauma of the past.
Yeah.
And as far as the science of organizations, because as leadership, as a leadership platform, it has an organizational impact. And without this baseline of conscious awareness, we build unconscious cultures full of silent rules and emotional undercurrents and toxic behavior that they like to label, oh, we just have high standards.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Yeah. So we have a definition. We have what it is, what it isn't. We have some neurological and psychological and organizational perspectives. But as our disruptor, Carrie Kenzie, what are some of the warning signs that someone, quote unquote, doesn't have this principle embodied? I mean, people will say, oh, I'm aware.
Right.
I'm aware. Like, what is it? Like, the research on that, back to the research, is 95% of people think that they are consciously aware, but what is it, like 13%?
Oh my gosh, ridiculous. Yes.
Actually are.
Yes.
So how does it show up in their life and their relationships? Tell us.
Your first sign is going to be that your nervous system is completely jacked. That's one thing. Your nervous system is jacked and you are consistently living in a fight or flight mode. And the reason why I say that is because when your nervous system is jacked and you are in a fight or flight mode, you do not have the opportunity, the wherewithal to have any kind of conscious awareness. That part of your brain shuts down. It just shuts down because, again, you're focused in the fear and you are utilizing every single resource to keep yourself alive. So you become reactive. You start spinning out of control. You are constantly needing something outside of yourself to stabilize what is raveling inside of you. You don't have the foundation. You have not found that foundation of your own truth. So you're looking for the truth of everybody else to be that for you. And you see it in leadership consistently. And unfortunately, so much so that it's unrecognized. It's unrecognized, not just by the leader themselves, but by the culture around, because it is so commonplace. So in a leader, you're going to over-explain. You just over-explain things. Your emails get way too long. You make a request and you've got 3 paragraphs after it justifying the request that you just made. You can't delegate. You are in control. And again, when you don't feel like you can control what's happening in you, you control everything outside of you. So you don't delegate. You don't call truth. You don't have a hard conversation. And you keep people hostage to their own unprocessed emotions. Okay, so it's going to show up as chaos. But what you think it is productivity.
Mhm.
That's what you think it is. I'm so busy, right? I'm so busy. I have so many things to do. I don't have time. That is a badge of honor. It's a
Mhm.
badge of honor, but it is simply avoidance in disguise. And the most dangerous thing, like you had said, the most dangerous thing is that you think you're leading, but you're just managing your own dysregulation on a public stage. That's what you're doing.
Yes. Yeah. So why now? Why in this moment in time is this principle more important than ever?
I mean, have you been awake at all in 2020?
Let's just assume I'm not aware.
Oh my gosh, right? This if you pop on the news, if you go on social media, if you do anything, it is riddled in fear. It's riddled in fear. And here's the thing, friends, life is not going to slow down. Okay. It's not going to slow down. And the only way that we get to lead now is to stop outsourcing our power to everybody else's expectation to the power of the world. When we are not consciously aware, we don't have the ability to see the beauty beyond the fear. We don't have the ability to see the opportunity. And the world is riddled in so much expectation of negativity, expectation of the ball to drop, expectation of you name the fear. I'm not going to put it out in the universe for you because you know where it's sitting in the back of your mind. When you have that expectation and you are not consciously aware, you don't understand truth of you. You are buying into everybody else's truth and you don't have the ability to create. So conscious awareness now is going to protect your peace,
Mhm.
period. It's going to protect your peace. It's going to bring you back into a space of calm. I mean, that is like the tip of the iceberg why it's so important, but that's what I would say.
Oh, agreed. So good. Yeah.
Yeah. So in that, as we like, as we talk about those types of things, what would you say then? What be like some of the common illusions or the coping mechanisms people fall into instead of actually addressing what's happening?
Mm. I think, well, we overthink, right?
Mm-hmm.
We overthink. Um, we stay confused,
Yep.
right? Um, we have the illusion of control by overthinking, and we have the illusion of certainty by just saying we don't know, as if
Mm.
that is a decision. And
Whoa.
it is, and it can be a decision um, by way of indecision, but it keeps us talk about fear, right?
Mhm.
Talk about fear. Like the the root of all of this is the fear of making the wrong move, the fear of being seen at all, the fear of failure. So I'll just be confused by it as to I don't know in order to not make a decision that could be wrong. Um, the other thing that I see is lots of numbing out,
Yes.
right? Lots of scrolling, lots of like overdoing by overeating, over binging, over scrolling, over drinking, over all of that. And in order to not be here,
Yeah.
in order to not give ourselves this presence,
Mm.
right? And
Mhm.
so and so we do. I mean, we numb out to avoid the discomfort of misalignment. We avoid the discomfort as a and we don't see it as the gift that it is. And
Mhm.
so we discount it and we think that there's something gone wrong because we haven't gotten comfortable being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And to your point, we micromanage,
Yep.
right? We want to feel like we're relevant, and so we want to control everything and call it standard,
Mm.
right?
Mhm.
We chase validation.
Mhm.
I see that we do that as an illusion of our worth. And we, in that chasing validation, we completely disconnect from who it is that we are because we forget that we are our validators. We're
Mhm.
the only validators that are required.
Mhm.
And we stay busy. It's the illusion of progress. We
Mhm.
stay overwhelmed like a badge of honor, like you mentioned. All so that we can keep feeding the fear.
Mhm.
We become addicted to it.
Yeah.
So I I mean, that's what I would say. That's what I would say about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I 100% agree. And, this behavior, like what you're talking about, right? What it does and what it's doing for them is so outside of what their expectation or what they feel like it's doing for them.
Mm.
Right. So I
Yes.
think that just leads perfectly into this little segue of giving them something to do. Right. What is this doing for that? It's giving them something to do. It gives
Yes.
them something to grip onto. Right. It
Hmm.
actually makes them feel like they're in control of something.
Hmm.
And it excuses away the silence, which is fascinating. This is fascinating to me because when we sit and we think that the numbing out and the overthinking and the micromanaging and all of that busyness, right? You think that when we get to some spaces, it's like, I just need a break. So I'm going to sit and I'm going to Netflix or I'm going to binge or I'm going to do this, right? Because I have to numb it out. But all you're doing is you're escaping a silence that you are so longing for. Have we ever thought about that? Right?
Uh-uh.
You get to the end of the day. I know this is sorry. But when we think about that, it's like you've been going and you've been doing all day long, and you think, I just need a moment of peace. And so you sit in front of the television or you sit in front of doing something. You are micromanaging, you are acting, you are distracting, right? All in the illusion of control, all in the search of the silence that you are actually negating yourself of.
Mm.
Because we don't want the silence. We don't actually want the silence that we long for, which is why the busyness and the micromanaging and the overconsuming have become an addiction.
Yes.
Because in that silence, you might be exposed. Not outwardly, but inwardly. We don't want that kind of exposure because exposure is dangerous. But what if that exposure, what if that silence was actually the portal back to your power? And what if in holding it all together is doing nothing but holding you back? Those would be the questions that I would ask. Because where you find the behavior is benefiting you and providing with you with the silence, it is doing everything in the opposite for what it is that you look for.
Mm.
So, Leah, talk to us about this because you are like the queen of metaphors and stories, and you always have some beautiful little like packagey thing that you can wrap up for us when you're like, think about it this way. What would you say to this? What would you say to conscious awareness or like what we've been navigating through?
Hmm. So there is a metaphor that I didn't even know about, but that our brilliant marketing gentleman brought forward. And I had to like do some recon because I had to like do some investigation about this. And it was fascinating. So I'm super excited. But
Yes.
it is a metaphor around a thermostat
Yep.
versus a thermometer. And if you think about it, it makes such good sense. So talk about thermometer leaders, okay? If you
Mm.
think about a thermometer, it measures the temperature of the environment. That's it. That's it. It reflects, it reports, it reacts. Okay? So thermometer leaders, they are very reaction driven. They're externally wired. Okay? They are the opposite of what we're bringing forward in this principle, right?
Mhm.
They mirror the chaos, the doubt, or the urgency around them. They absorb the energy of the room, just like a thermometer does, right? They lead from circumstances, not from any sort of intention. They are emotionally hijacked by pressure, by performance, and by perception, and probably perfectionism. Okay. They think, how do I keep up?
Mhm.
Instead of, what do I want to create? Thermostat leaders, on the other hand, right? And you think about a thermostat, it sets the temperature, right? It lets it go up, it lets it goes down. There's some flexibility there, but it's going to bring it back to the middle.
Mhm.
It's going to bring it back to the climate that is set, and it recalibrates the environment to match its intention. to match the intention of the homeowner that puts it at a certain temperature, right? And so these kind of leaders, they cultivate self-awareness first. Then they shape the team dynamics from that state, right? They look internally first as opposed to delegating responsibility outwardly. They own it all. And they shift the energy instead of absorbing it and instead of blaming it. And so I love that he brought all of that forward. So the question then is, are you being a thermostat leader or are you being a thermometer leader? And the difference is huge. It's huge. And so what's the cost then? If we are operating from that reaction mode, that lack of kind of responsibility and that massive amount of control. What's the real cost of ignoring this principle in our life and in our leadership?
How much time do we have?
I know, right?
Boy, the cost of this. You're going to build a house of cards. Period. Because one gust of misalignment and the entire thing is going to fall down. As a leader, as a human, you're going to attract the wrong people. I was sitting in a event earlier this week, and she talked about the energy that you attract by the energy that you are, which you and I know very deeply, right? But it is in that misalignment, in that inability of conscious awareness, in that hijacked nervous system and the fear that you're feeling, this is what you get to attract, people. And you attract the wrong people, the wrong relationship, the wrong employee. And then you say yes to all the wrong stuff. And you end up resenting the very thing that you were supposed to love. That's like that house of cards. But here's the other thing that happens. People don't trust you. Culture is not going to trust you. And it's not because you're bad. And you could be this amazing giving person. But here's the thing. They feel your presence more than they feel your actions. And your presence doesn't feel safe. When you're leading from a place of fear, you don't feel safe, which I go back to earlier conversation. When we are leading from that place, which quite honestly, too many of us are, people aren't even sensing it because it becomes such a natural state of being. And that to me breaks my heart. People don't feel safe. And if you are unstable internally, your team is going to feel it instinctively. They just won't be able to put their finger on it. Okay. So this is a slow erosion, this right here. And one day, you want to know what's going to happen? You're going to wake up in a success that doesn't even feel like it's yours. That's
so, yeah. I love the house of cards analogy, right? Because it will crumble, right? Yeah. It's built on trust. And if you are feeling fear and you don't feel safe within yourself,
yes,
how is and in the energy of you, how is anybody going to feel safe in the energy of you? And it requires awareness to wake up from that energy and to shift.
Yes.
Right? From fear into love, from scarcity into abundance. It is a requirement. It is a requirement. Yeah.
Yes.
So good. It's so good. So when we think about the obstacles that most people face when we're trying to live or we're trying to lead by this principle, right? What stops them? What gets them in the way? Even when they know better, when they're like, I know, they'll say, I know I should on myself. Or I know this is a scarcity thought. I know that I should be more thinking in abundance. I know this, right? What happens? What's happening? Why can't they get to awareness? What trips them up?
Busyness, distraction, right? Continually moving, continuously doing, the numbing out. These are drugs. These are addictions. And this is what continuously, like I say, it masks the ache of that misalignment because you never allow yourself the moment of silence to find the presence, to understand where things are off. You just keep moving forward and you think because you're building, you're growing. But I've said this and I will hold true to this forever. Anything built in fear is going to die in scarcity. Period. Anything built in fear is going to die in scarcity because all you're doing is replicating the same dysfunction just in a prettier package. It's not about speed, okay? It's about direction. And if we don't pause, if we don't take that moment of pause, if we don't allow that silence and we don't get honest with ourselves, not with anybody else, if you just get honest with yourself, when we don't do that, you are going to run really fast in the wrong direction. And then you're going to wonder, the hell does it feel this way?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I know we're kind of coming up on time, and I want to make sure that we get into these tangibles for individuals, these tangible moments. So Leah, could you give us maybe a little micro practice that listeners can do to really develop this principle?
Well, to your point, it has to be a practice.
Yes.
Right? It has to be a focused practice because you're not going to want to do it because your autopilot wants you to just keep doing what you did yesterday. It just wants you to keep rinsing and repeating. So we get to invite these practices in on purpose.
Yes.
Right? And so some of my very favorite, and I call it my 2-minute morning because most of us brush our teeth every day. And so in that moment, when we're brushing our teeth, instead of trying to figure out what socks you're going to wear, instead of trying to wipe down your counters, instead of trying to figure out your outfit, can you, as you're brushing your teeth, think about what you're thinking about? Become aware of your thoughts. Become aware of the energy that you're going to bring forward in the day. Just allow yourself the space to really think about what it is that you think. What is it that you feel, right? What are your thoughts in a loop around? Are they fear-based? Are they in all of the ways that your life is going to be amazing and brilliant, right? Where are these emotions? Are they mine or are they somebody else's? Really get in tune, come back to center in that moment. And then you end the day the same way. If there was time, I would reveal so many more, but that is a practice and it's a beautiful habit because you just stack it on something that you already do.
Yeah.
But try to do it for 2 minutes. It will be the longest 2 minutes. If you haven't done this before, it'll be the longest 2 minutes ever.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
That's what I would say between now and next week, when we dive into the next principle, when we tap into principle 2, that is our challenge to you every day to take a pause, every day to take that 2 minutes, have an awareness around the thoughts that are running and take a pause before you say yes. Let's do intention and not reaction. So our beautiful friends, thank you so much for being here. We adore you and we cannot wait to dive into principle 2 with you next week.
See you soon.